Hello everyone, Clacka the Geek here. Welcome back to a brand new video, and today is episode 39 of the Clacka Chronicles podcast, and we're going to be reviewing episode 2 of Doctor Who Series 13, Flux, War of the Sontarans. And I'm just going to say, I love this episode, and is one of my favourite Chibnall episodes that we've had. So, with the Halloween apocalypse, I think after some more thought, it's going down a bit in my estimation. It's not awful, it's still entertaining, but as a story, it isn't substantial. This definitely is, and let's just get into why. So, first of all, let's start off with the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker, in what could possibly be her best performance. Yeah, she's very much on her own. She doesn't really have the companions with her for the majority of it, but she also has a Mary... I forgot her name, the historical character, but she's not with the companions, and I think it allows for Jodie to give some really good performances, especially when she's interacting with the Sontarans, and I genuinely thought she was brilliant in this episode. Now let's talk about Dan, our companion. John Bishop, I love him. He's 2 episodes in and I'm loving him. He's funny, he's resourceful, he's, beating them, the Sontarans up with a frying pan. Dan the man with the frying pan, that's what I'm going to call him. He was brilliant. His interactions with the Sontarans, it was great. And I also love how he sees parents. That's a nice little touch to the episode. Now we have Yaz as well, who I thought her sort of storyline was kind of the weakest part of the episode. It wasn't bad, but just I didn't think she was bad at all. I think she was good, and she was also paired with Vinda, Jacob Anderson's character, and I think they bounced off each other quite well, and I liked them. And what happens at the end? I mean, how are we going to get out of this one? But yeah, I think Yaz was good, but her stuff was pretty the weakest of the 3 kind of storylines going on. Now let's get to the absolute best part of this story, the Sontarans. And I think, what I think of Chibnall, I'm not his biggest fan, but the one thing that always works is, with the classic monsters, Chibnall always nails them, whether it's the Daleks, Cybermen, the Master, the Jadoon, and the Sontarans. I think this is, in modern Who, this is their best portrayal. I love how we see an army of them. They're not played for laughs. They have little bits of humour. There are a couple of jokes, but it's not overbearing. And they're dark as well. Like some of the stuff when they're executing people and like when they're fighting all the soldiers. Like this is what I've always wanted to see from the Sontarans. And it was just like it was like these like childhood stories that I'd written. Because I remember this. I wrote a Sontaran story when I was little, or when I was younger, and it had like them killing loads of people. And it's like this is what the Sontarans should be. They should be menacing. And some of the deaths were actually quite brutal when they stuck a gun to someone's stomach, and that was brutal. I also love the design, the colour scheme of the grey and black harkens back to classic Who, and I love that the faces, they look disgusting, but in a good way, and no complaint to the Sontarans here, and I love the Crimean War, them in the Crimean War. Speaking of the Crimean War, I think elements of the historical side of it were a little bit underdeveloped. It's not massively, but they were somewhat underdeveloped. I felt like some of the characters could have been expanded on more. But I did like Mary Seacole. I liked her as a sort of surrogate companion for the Doctor. Although that general guy, yeah, he was a bit cartoonish, but it wasn't too bad. But yeah, the Crimean War stuff, it was decent, I thought. Speaking of the Sontarans, the idea that they have kind of established themselves in history thanks to the Flux, and they kind of Sontar has replaced Russia. That is a brilliant idea. It's just that was brilliant, and they'd taken over Liverpool, and Dan was trying to, he was sneaking in, trying to stop it. It was brilliant. I loved that stuff. I'll briefly talk about Yaz's subplot at the temple on the planet Time. Yeah, it was the weaker part of the episode just because it felt a bit unrelated to the Sontaran plotline, but it was still interesting, and I love the Swarm as an antagonist. Swarm, his sister, and they've got that beastie fellow, the big guy. I can't wait to see what more we get from them, but yeah, I love them. I also want to talk about the direction and the visuals, which were top notch. I loved the massive battle scene with the Sontarans and the British soldiers. I loved that stuff. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the direction. I loved some of the shots. Like there was a shot at the very beginning when the Doctor wakes up from the Flux and it's all in black and white. I loved that stuff. It was a visually gorgeous episode. And some other plot lines that were also in it. There was the whole TARDIS dying thing, and it's in a bit of a worse way. I forgot to mention that with last week, I think, but that's interesting. I'm curious to see what's happening with the whole TARDIS dying thing, because that was a leak. That was something that leaked a while ago, and I'm interested to see what that's all about, and that could be interesting. And Carvanista comes back to protect Dan. That was great, and I hope he's a recurring character. I hope that we get a good ensemble in the series. That would be quite something. You know, they all team up. You know, you've got obviously the three main TARDIS team. You've got Vinda, you've got Carvanista, maybe you've got maybe some other characters. That would be quite cool. I would like to see that. As well as that, the historical guy from Liverpool, you know, the top hat, I can't remember his name, but he appears in the episode for like a second. So, at the temple place, who is, you know, has clearly been affected by the flux. Yeah, I don't think you necessarily needed that in the Halloween apocalypse. I think because he didn't really add anything to this episode. It's like you could have set it up in a future episode, maybe. I don't know, but. Yeah, I mean, I really don't have many complaints about this episode. I had so much fun with this episode, and it didn't feel rushed. It felt like a complete story. I mean, it was about an hour long, so it had a bit more time to develop. It didn't feel... It didn't feel rushed. It felt like a good story. It can work outside of the Flux narrative. I just absolutely love this episode. So overall, I'm going to give this episode a 9 out of 10. I just had an absolute blast with this episode. It didn't feel rushed. It was perfectly paced for the most part. I have a few nitpicks and issues with it, but overall, it was great. The Sontarans were portrayed perfectly. The Doctor was great. Dan was great. It was just an absolutely brilliant episode, and one of the best in Chibnall's era so far. So, yeah, I love this episode. So what did you think of this episode? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. Click the bell so you don't miss a thing. And this is Clacka the Geek, signing out. Goodbye, everyone.